Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unbound Wisdom. My name is Leah, and I've been preparing a series of videos for you about the space between lives. This is a concept that I've been so fascinated by for a number of years. What happens to our soul when we leave this physical body before we reincarnate into a different body? What processes do we go through? Procedures do we go through? What healing is done? What kind of debriefing is there or pre-planning for the next phase? It's so fascinating to me. And over the course of the regressions that I've done for clients, as well as the exploration I've done with my own records, I've been able to collaborate a lot of the stories. It seems like there's similarities in between many of the soul's experiences that seem to match up. And it also corresponds with the work that Michael Newton did. He's a pioneer in this industry, and I've researched so much of his work. But what I want to bring forward to you guys in the next 2 to 3 videos is some of those findings. But today, what really wants to come through is a little bit different, but not also. It is something that I hope will help us on the physical level when a loved one passes away, when a loved one of ours goes to the space between lives. What I have found is that, especially when we have deep soul bonds, deep connections, karmic bonds, or soul contracts with somebody, those contracts don't necessarily end upon the death of one of the parties. In fact, they carry on. So what I'm hoping today is that we can discover the ways in which our loved ones are still communicating with us from the other side, still fulfilling their end of the bargain, helping us through whatever decisions we're making in our life, helping us through the grieving process, or whatever lessons we're here to accomplish. Our loved ones are still there. They're still there. They're still communicating with us, and they're still helping us along our path. I recognize as humans, it is so hard when someone that we deeply care about passes away. Sometimes the grief feels overwhelming, and it's difficult to carry on. Very difficult to carry on with our lives. So what I'm hoping today is that we can learn some of the ways that we can initiate contact or conversation with our loved ones, because even though their physical bodies are no longer on the earth plane, their soul lives on, and we are still in contact with them on a soul level. We are still reunited with them on a soul level. How can we bring those messages through to our physical body to help with our healing, to help with our growth, to help with whatever life path we're meant to be on? Many times our loved ones carry on as spirit guides or as what we would perceive as guardian angels. So often they are right there by our side. And today we're going to go over the ways in which we can initiate contact and recognize when they are helping us. So what are the ways that spirits communicate with us from the other side? Well, how do we initiate contact? First of all, we have to intend it. And this is so big. We have to ask. We have to set the intention that we wish to connect, and we have to allow ourselves to be open to it. That's the biggest thing of all. If you happen to have a personal item from the loved one that passed away, it can be very helpful in initiating contact. So this could be like a piece of jewelry, it could be a piece of clothing, it could be something that's very meaningful to the person that passed. I would recommend that you hold that in meditation as you set the intention to connect, because that object holds an energetic signature from the soul that passed away. And it makes it a lot easier for that spirit to make contact with you from beyond the veil when you're holding on to some of their energy signature in your physical hand. So that is something that I would recommend when you are initiating contact, is to, if you can, hold a personal item as you're sitting quietly in meditation. And then we have to allow whatever comes through to come through. One of the biggest ways that spirits communicate with us is what I call energy signatures. This can happen either on a physical level, we can feel it physically in our body, or we can feel it emotionally in our body. So, on a physical level, we might notice a tingling, a tickling, a warmth, maybe like a wisp of air that blows by our body. And when we're aware that that happens, all we need to do is still ourselves, calm our mind, and ask who is there, right? If we have a deep knowing that it is our loved one, it is very likely our loved one that's communicating with us. If there happens to be a certain way that um, our physical body responded when our loved one was around, that's a really good sign that it is our loved one. So, for instance, if your partner always kissed your neck, that's a huge one. If your partner always kissed your neck and you feel that same sensation on your neck, especially when you ask to connect, we can be assured that that is them connecting with you. That is them saying, yes, I'm here. That is them validating that they are still with you to help you in this lifetime. Maybe your loved one always would hug you, come up from behind and hug you. How did that feel in your body when that happened? How did that feel physically when that happened? That same feeling might come over you, and you'll know that your loved one is near. Um, Maybe it's something very playful. Maybe it was like an inside joke or something. Maybe your loved one would tickle you or something, and you feel that same feeling in your body. You recognize that that is your loved one communicating with you, right? So physically feeling it in our body is one way. We can sometimes see the spirit world. And when this happens for most people, it might be like in the periphery. So it could be a shadow or just something moving out the corner of your eye, could be a loved one communicating with you, especially if you have set the intention that you wish to connect. In that instance, again, take a pause, still yourself, still your mind, and ask who it is, first of all, and then allow yourself to be open to whatever needs to come through, whatever messages need to come through. Also, smells. This is a big one, especially if it's a smell that you associate with your loved one. Maybe it's a perfume that your grandma always wore. Maybe it's roses that your mom always loved. Maybe it's banana bread that your best friend would bake all the time. Whatever it is, it's a unique smell that you associate with that person. And that is a huge way that spirit will communicate with us to let us know that they're around. Emotionally, another energy signature. If we ask to connect to a loved one and we feel an overwhelming sense in our body of love, of connection, of inspiration, of being held in safety, these are all ways that the spirit is probably trying to communicate with you. Of course, we will feel grief and sadness, yes. But if that is mixed with an overwhelming sense of love, especially the kind of love that you associate with that person, that is them connecting with you. So many times spirits want to help us to move on. They want to comfort us. They want to show us that we're still loved and held. But they also could be helping to point us in a certain direction in our life. They could be helping us along the path that we agreed to be on. Maybe we're straying a little bit from our life path and they're redirecting us back onto that path. That can be quite common as well. They might want to just be reminding you of their love or assuring you that you aren't alone or reminding you that you'll be reunited again. All of these things are quite possible when you initiate contact and the spirit is there with you. All of these things are very possible. So you just have to trust that whatever's coming through is meant to come through, right? Aside from energy signatures, a huge way that the other realm communicates with us is during our dream time. So a loved one very often will come to us in dreams to pass messages. So often, especially when we're in the midst of grief. Maybe right after they pass, it's so difficult to really be able to function, in any way in our waking life. But in our dream time, our human emotions are at bay, our human mind is not wild, running wild or preoccupied. So the spirit is able to come into our dream time in order to deliver those messages. So if you have a dream of your loved one, if it is a very vivid dream where you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, that felt real, likely that they were there with you and they were communicating with you. If you have a lucid dream with your loved one in it, which means you're dreaming and you realize that it's a dream and you're somehow able to consciously navigate that dream and your loved one is there with you, huge sign that they are there to pass on a message to you. So in either of these instances, what you would want to do upon waking is don't open your eyes right away. Just lay there and bask in it and just allow yourself to try to remember as much as you possibly can. That space between dream and wake time is so important for communication and also for us to assimilate the messages that were passed on into our conscious mind. So bask in that in between dream and awake state as long as you possibly can to allow as many messages to soak in as you can, right? Also, spirits communicate with us through children. This is huge because kids don't have that veil of forgetfulness quite yet, especially at very young ages. So if your child says, I just talked to grandpa the other day, I personally would really listen to that message. I really would. And I would encourage my child to expand upon it if possible. And I would also express my gratitude to my child for being that conduit. That's just me though, and that's a side note. But for myself, I want to enable my children to leave the veil off for as long as they possibly can, right? And not to be conditioned by society as much as we possibly can. So if kids pass on a message, I would completely believe it. I would completely listen to it. Animals, another huge way, because spirits can communicate with animals a lot easier than other humans. So in this instance, lots of times the animal just comes to you to comfort you. And it's possible that the animal comforting you was orchestrated by your loved one from the other side. So if your puppy or your kitty is especially snuggly with you, it could be that your loved one has sent them to do so, to comfort you, to hold you in love, and to, help you through a difficult period. The last way that I had is through synchronicities. And this one is something that's really important because spirit guides in general communicate with us a lot through synchronicities, which is something when we're aware of it, it can really help us stay on the right life path. So if it's something that a symbol or a sign that was significant with the person that you lost, it's a great sign that they're communicating with you. So for example, if you see red roses everywhere you go, for some random reason, there's red roses everywhere, and your grandma had a rose garden full of red roses, it could be that your grandma is trying to point you in a certain direction or just let you know that she's there. But oftentimes, when we pay attention to these small signs and synchronicities, it's leading us down a certain path or helping us to make a certain decision or helping to unburden us from making a decision because we feel secure with what we're currently doing, right? So synchronicities that might be significant with the person that you lost, definitely pay attention to those. And if you suspect that that's what's happening, again, just pay close attention to the signs and then ask for confirmation. Ask for confirmation. You could even say, hey, if this is a sign that I'm supposed to be doing this, then show me another sign. And then when you see that sign, then you'll know, right? It could be something as simple as every time I find a penny, I know my grandpa's around. Really anything that is happening so coincidentally that it's not a coincidence. That's a synchronicity that would be a way that our loved one could communicate with us from the other side. And lastly, I just wanted to bring up, we can set these agreements up with people that we're close to while we're still alive. And I know this sounds really wild, but I know that it works. I have firsthand knowledge that it works. Uh, we can say, hey, I want you to communicate with me in this way. If either of us should pass away, this is the way that I want you to communicate with me. And you can set these things up before death. Um, I know this works because a friend of mine had set this up with someone that he lost. He lost her so young, so early, but they had already talked about this before she died, and it worked. He still communicates with her in this way. And the way they picked is so extraordinary and way too random to be random. Uh and he's able to maintain that contact with her even from the other side. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's something that you could try out because in the end, we know that the soul doesn't leave the earth for good. We know that the soul will be back. And we also know that our soul will be reunited um, upon our own passing. So if that gives us any comfort at all, I mean, that would be my prayer for today, is that it helps us to be able to continue on, to heal our grief, and to find fulfillment in our life once again, even after the pain of losing someone that we're very close to. I hope this was helpful to you guys today. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me because I'm more than happy to help. And I'm excited to release the rest of the videos in this series where we go more in depth with what actually happens in that space between lives. I'm very honored that you are here with me today, and I appreciate you all so very much. Until next time.